Hi, and thank you for joining us on the Red Wagon Estate Planning Show, hosted by me, yours truly, Jeffrey Belomo. I am with Belomo and Associates, and we are an estate planning and elder law firm with offices in York and Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and we exclusively practice in the areas of estate planning and elder law, which means essentially everything from powers of attorney and wills to trusts for asset protection purposes, tax purposes, and post-death administration, as well as an area that we call crisis planning. So if an individual or a loved one was to enter a nursing home, we will be able to preserve and protect as much assets as the law allows, and that is the other portion of our practice. And today on the podcast, I want to talk a little bit about that specific topic, which is Medicaid. On a previous topic, our podcast, we spent the whole time discussing Medicaid in general, the differences between Medicare and Medicaid, what is a 5-year look-back period, what's the difference between that and a penalty period, what does it take as far as resources to qualify, and if there is a spouse, how much can you protect for the spouse? As soon as I finished that podcast, I realized that I wanted to take the time to discuss a little bit about the differences between nursing home Medicaid and in-home care waiver program, or Community HealthChoices as it's called currently. So Medicaid is a federal program, right? And the laws that pretty much dictate or govern Medicaid are DRA 05, Deficit Reduction Act of 05, as well as OBRA 96, okay? Those are the two laws that pretty much set forth our federal Medicaid. And then what happens is each state gets to interpret the laws under those two major opinions as to how they want or how they see fit. So it is a federal law, but it is interpreted differently by the states. So you have each state essentially taking a look at the law, taking a look at what the federal government said in those two major opinions, and saying, okay, how are we interpreting it? So in Pennsylvania, there is something called the Long-Term Care Handbook. The Long-Term Care Handbook is Pennsylvania's view of it, right? It's their interpretation. It's how they're going to make decisions. It's how they're going to look at something. So for about 5.5 years, I traveled the country teaching lawyers all over the country with a great organization called Lawyers with Purpose. And while I was doing that, the reason that I was able to is because it was a federal law, right? So even though you're dealing with attorneys in 50-some different states, it didn't matter because we were teaching the federal law. And then what we would say to them is, okay, this is a state question, right? We called it a blue sheet item. So we literally gave every attorney in the room a blue sheet and said, this is a blue sheet item. Please write it down. And when you go back to your community, call the caseworker, call another attorney in your in the area, take a look at the handbook, take a look at the resource guides that are available in the state, and get an answer to this specific question, because there are only so many areas where it's going to differ, and they're only going to differ certain ways. So here's how it could differ. Here's what it means. Just look to see what it is, and here's the answer. So that's why I was able to do that for so long and train thousands of lawyers across the country, because it's a federal rule. Now, once you get into Pennsylvania, now you need to learn the long-term care handbook. You need to understand the nuances of what the state of Pennsylvania is doing. And remember, just because it's their interpretation or their opinion doesn't mean that they're right. Okay, so on a future podcast, I'll talk about a couple different areas where I personally am not certain that Pennsylvania's interpretation is correct. I believe that there's a day where somebody challenges it and is able to change the rule in Pennsylvania. But until it's challenged, you got to go with whatever Department of Human Services says it is, because it's their baby, right? It's their interpretation. They're the ones setting forth the rules based upon their opinion of the federal law. So we have to live with that, and we have to play within their rules unless we're willing to fight them. And as a general rule, there's no reason to. The rules are so favorable, allowing us to do so much that it's kind of senseless, in my opinion. And unless somebody had a lot of money and wanted to prove a point, that's generally why most of these things don't change, is because, there's enough here. It's certainly very favorable. Why would we rock the boat? And I agree, no sense to do that. But I'll certainly opine on my few thoughts that I have as to the areas where it bothers me. But at the end of the day, very wonderful rules, great people at DHS to deal with, and certainly love working with them on a daily basis. All right, so once we get an individual qualified, right, we've said on the last show, we look at qualification as a 3-pronged test. You have to be medically eligible, which is the area agency on aging, or the doctor for the nursing home, that they're certifying that the individual is skilled level eligible and needs skilled level care. Then you need 5 years of statements for the 5-year look back period of every statement of every asset. And ultimately you have to be financially eligible, which we talked on the last show, as far as we are able to do it for a single or married couple. We are able to protect assets, 100% for a married couple, 50% for a single individual who is widow or widowed. So we know we can do it. We know we can protect assets. What's the distinction between, or what are the differences, should I say, between the nursing home Medicaid and the in-home care Medicaid? Okay? Because there are some differences, although it is under the same umbrella. The rules are the same. The qualifications are the same. The biggest difference as far as qualification goes is that with Waiver program, under Community HealthChoices is the new law in Pennsylvania that we're following, or the new program, I should say, the individual's income cannot be over the income cap limit of $2,523 a month. Essentially, it's just pension and Social Security. We're just looking at pension and Social Security, and we're saying, okay, is the individual who's receiving the care, is their income over $2,523 a month? If yes, they do not qualify. If no, they can. Now, there's a couple minor exceptions to that, and I'm not going to delve too deep into those, but let's just suffice it to say that there's a way to kind of manipulate or move an additional $500 of income. So generally speaking, I'm asking clients, is your income under $3,000 a month? Okay. If it is, we could probably help. If it isn't, we may not be able to. Okay. So that's kind of your, right around 3,000 is your number. There is another very, very limited exception, very difficult exception to be able to employ. So for the purposes of this podcast, generally speaking, in Pennsylvania, you have to be under $3,000 a month to be able to qualify for the Waiver program or for Community HealthChoices. Now, it doesn't matter what the community spouse's income is. It's only the person receiving the care. And remember, as long as the person receiving the care's income is under the threshold, if they're a married couple, we are still able to do the asset protection pieces that we discussed. So we are still able to protect 100% for the community spouse, even in a waiver situation. And here's the best part. The income from the institutionalized spouse, or the person receiving the care, gets to stay in the home to offset the cost of care. You can't beat it, right? They're receiving care in the home. The income actually stays in the home to help with the cost of care in the home. So it's a beautiful opportunity. Once the person is qualified for Medicaid, then a group is sent out to do an assessment to determine how many hours of care this individual is going to receive. Now, prior to Community HealthChoices, we were having a lot of families that were getting, 20 to 24 hours a day, or 18 to 22 hours a day. Fairly routine, fairly easy to staff those hours, and life was good. Then the program changed to Community HealthChoices, and COVID hit. So The problem is Community Health Choices has a new sort of algorithm as to how they determine hours. And we're finding that we're having to appeal a lot of those cases to try to get more hours for it to be more reasonable. But even if we get the hours, a lot of companies who do in-home care, because of COVID, were decimated. They weren't even able to keep enough staff to run the hours that they have. So it got very difficult. My understanding from the last conversation I had with my team is that it's getting a lot better, but it's still not a guarantee that you're going to be able to find the care. And yes, we actually had situations where people ended up having to go to the nursing home because there just wasn't enough care to be able to bring into the home. And then ultimately they had no choice but to place the individual. It is getting better. I suspect it will only get better as people need to get jobs and need to get back out into the community. And what better job to have than caregiving, giving back to the community, helping somebody stay in their home. So, in my part-time life, I'm very blessed that I'm a board member for Leg Up Farm, which is a wonderful organization that helps children with disabilities, and they do therapy through horse and equine therapy and just wonderful schooling opportunities and just increasing the ability for an individual. And it's an incredible organization with a wonderful story. If you ever have a chance to check out Leg Up Farm, I would highly, highly, highly encourage it, and go ask to take a tour. You will be amazingly impressed. And the other kind of part-time gig that I have is that I am the solicitor for the Center for Independent Living Opportunities, which is essentially an organization whose mission is to keep people in their home and allow them to maximize their ability to stay in the home. So that is why Waiver is so near and dear to my heart. It is the opportunity to keep people in their home safe and be able to receive the care that they need to be able to do so. So understanding the nuances between the programs is important. But generally speaking, other than the fact that there's an income cap limit for Waiver, the fact that you get to keep the income towards the cost of care to offset household expenses is absolutely amazing. Now, if that individual were to be placed or moved into a nursing home and then go into the nursing home program, the income from the individual who is receiving the care will go to the nursing home in order to be able to offset the cost of care. Okay. Now, in a single case, that's automatic. Your income goes to pay for the cost of care, less a $45 personal needs allowance that they allow you to cut your hair and have money to buy things at the home. But essentially, your income goes. In a married case, they look at it a little differently. So in a married case, the minimum amount of money that they want the community spouse to have is $2,288.75. Okay. Now that number changed on July 1st, but because I'm doing this podcast after July 1st, I'm giving you the number that it is for the second half of the year, which is $2,288.75. So once the community spouse is at that income, right, either by himself or herself or in conjunction with the person receiving the care, then the remainder or all of the money above that, less the $45 personal needs allowance, will go to the home for the cost of care. So you're still giving the community spouse not only assets, right? We talked about how we can protect 100% of the assets, but you're also giving them the income stream from the individual who's receiving the care to be able to allow them to live on a daily basis, which is incredible, right? So believe it or not, Pennsylvania's rules are actually very favorable. They really are very generous, particularly in the married case, because we can get them in the home, we can get them into the waiver program or community health choice program, getting care in the home and protecting assets. Now, for a single individual, it isn't quite the same for the waiver. If you were listening earlier, you noticed that I said that there was an income cap limit. And yes, we can finagle ways that as long as they're, less than $3,000, we can go ahead and get them the care. But the problem is, for a single case, we're not able to protect assets. Why? Well, if you listened on the previous podcasts, the way that we actually protect assets is we take an asset and we turn it into an income stream, right? It's allowed under the law. We're allowed to do it. They don't count it. Well, when you turn that asset into an income stream, what just happened to the individual's income who's receiving care, right? It went up. Well, there's an income cap limit of 23, with an additional $500 sort of wiggle room there, because we can use an excess income trust if we want to. But at the end of the day, $3,000 is sort of our hard number. Well, I can't protect assets because once I turn it into an income stream, it's going to put me over the threshold. So it is very, very difficult to protect assets for a single individual trying to receive care in the home. Essentially, you're looking to do a caregiver agreement with a family member where you can pay for care to the family member to bring down the level of assets, or you're going to be looking to some other common spend downs like funeral homes, funeral prepayments, and those kind of things. But as a general rule, we're not going to be able to preserve a lot of assets in a single case for waiver. For a married case, we can do everything we can do with the nursing home, so it's certainly a little more flexible for a spouse, a little easier to do planning for the spouse. We're a little more restricted with a single individual only for waiver. If the single individual is in the nursing home, we're still able to protect 50%. That is not an issue. It's just the fact that we have that income cap limit when it comes to the waiver program. So we're a little more limited in the ways that we are able to preserve assets. So all in all, these two programs allow us to either get care for individuals in the home or in the nursing home, which is absolutely incredible. And frankly, I'll put our program up against just about any other states by being able to travel and coach and teach other attorneys. I've been able to learn a lot about other states and the restrictions and the things that they have that we don't have. So we are very, very, very lucky here in the state. And I do want to give a shout out to the nursing homes. I will say that my best referral source, or the number one referral source that we have in our home, actually, or in our office, is nursing homes. We have a great relationship with them. I want to be very clear that when I'm talking about protecting assets and those things, I'm simply telling you what the law says. I love the nursing homes. They absolutely need to be paid. And under this, they are, right? They're getting guaranteed payment from the government as always, as well as there's going to be a penalty period. They're going to get private pay paid for a very long time. Most of the time, or some of the time, the individual dies during the private pay period, and the nursing home ends up getting all of their money anyway. So I'm a big advocate as well for the nursing homes to make sure that they get paid. They provide a wonderful service. It's very expensive to do that. It's very stressful to run a nursing home. So a shout out to all my nursing home relationships in the community. You are absolutely wonderful. We are lucky to have you. And we just love working with you and assisting you in continuing to fill your beds and to assist you in help in getting paid for that. So thank you to our nursing homes. I want to remind everybody that this is a radio show, so please don't make decisions based upon advice that you're hearing on this show. Seek out your counsel. You should not listen to this radio show or any radio show to make final decisions. You should use it as an opportunity for educational and informational purposes and to get more info to make a determination for yourself. If you're in the state of Pennsylvania, we'd love to talk to you. We're at 717-845-5390. If you're on the web, check us out at www.palomoassociates.com. And as always, and even in our crisis planning area, we do everything through education. So we ask that you come to a 2-hour workshop, or that you watch the 2-hour workshop in the comfort of your home, and then have a free consultation with a team member who will be able to look at your specific facts, tell you the cost that it would be in order for us to be able to assist you with the case, tell you how we're going to do it, and then that way you at least know what's the result and what's the cost, and then you can make a determination. You've already been educated, you know where you're headed, you know what's kind of the pros and the cons and where you're at, and you can determine if you'd like to work with our firm. We have offices in York and Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and as I said, we do have links to be able to provide as well so that you can watch the workshop from the comfort of your home. In the Medicaid context, we have people from all over the state of Pennsylvania. We just finished applications in Pittsburgh and Erie and Altoona and Ebensburg. I mean, you say it, we've pretty much done an application all over the state. So we would certainly love to help you anywhere in the state of Pennsylvania. You can give us a call, and we would be more than happy to assist with that planning. We hope you enjoyed the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law show today. We talked a lot more about Medicaid, the differences between the nursing home Medicaid versus the community or Community HealthChoices or the Waiver program where the care is in the home. We talked about the current state of the Waiver program in that it's certainly getting better. There are a lot more caregivers out there than there were during COVID, but it isn't perfect yet. We aren't completely back to where we were. So every now and then we do have a situation where we need to place somebody because we can't actually staff the hours. But I will say it is getting much better. People are looking to get back to work, and people are definitely going to the in-home care. So just a shout out, if you're looking for a job and you're looking for something that would be extremely rewarding, there are a lot of in-home care providers in York, Lancaster County, and throughout the state of Pennsylvania that would love your help. You get to assist someone who's either disabled or who's elderly who just needs some assistance, just needs help on a daily basis with activities of daily living. There's probably not a more rewarding job out there than that. So please give those companies a call and submit an application. You would be helping yourself, you would be helping the community, and you'd be helping the elderly around you to be able to stay in their homes and stay independent, which is what they would like to do. So thanks for joining us on this podcast. We look forward to seeing you on the next one. The Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show, hosted by me, Jeff Belomo.